Welcome to Channel AMAC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on a little bell on the side, so once we have all the updates and news, you'd be the first one getting all the insight. Now today's video is all about election 2022. There is a general election coming up, a federal election should I say, on the 21st of May, which is gonna be just a week to go. So obviously the current party, LNP, Liberal National Party, against the Labour Party in Australia. Every day news bombarding each other. There's so many campaigns, there's so many complaints, there's so many other policies has been introduced, and the tensions in the Pacific in regards to the Chinese vessel going all around Australia also become a news as well. So obviously the current party, the current ruling party, basically accuses that the Labour Party is too friendly with Beijing. However, the Labour Party, the opposition party, accuses the current party, the current government, has been too reluctant in actually monitoring and allowing things to be happening about the aggression and things like that. But who knows? Now let's talk about the election and what we expect and what's coming up. Obviously, we're not here to put any preferences on any of the party. I personally believe whichever party wins the elections, the global sense will continue to move on, and perhaps Australia needs a change. Because the current Liberal Party has been there for numbers of years, and the general public of Australians probably get a little bit sick of it. They want to get some change, but let's see what happens. Now, the first half of this video, we will go through a little bit of the election. In the second half, we'll talk about how the business reacts to the current government in regards to the no increase of the annual intake for 2022 and 23. So a lot of people came out and saying, whoa, that is a joke. And obviously that probably will lead to a lose of elections coming up. So anyway, let's have a look. Now there has been a lot of, look at this is a live updates. So what's happening now with the news media now, they put on not just for live 24 hours news, but they have this news update and live feeding. It's like Twitter's embedded into this. I think it's quite good. So 3 hours ago, Western Australian reports, blah blah blah, and all these news, and Anthony Albanese looks like it's gonna be the next prime minister, but who knows? Because what happened with the Chinese vessel going around the west side, well, nearby Western Australia, going around, would that change the voters' decision in the last minute? We don't know. Now the Beijing has sent a message. I think today there's a lot of news in regards to obviously they oppose what Peter Dutton, the Minister of Defense, is trying to accuse of. But why are you having a military vessels on the offshore of the Western Australia? Why? And at this point in time, why? Well, would the Labour Party come up and accuse the same thing as well? I'm not too sure. But at this point in time, the public opinion had put more preferences to the Labour leader Anthony Albanese, who actually, after the debate, I think there were 3 debates, Labour Party Albanese, they call them Albo, actually has a much better ratio being preferred as a leader after all these debate. So it's actually very important in a democratic society that we have leaders debating each other, because without debate, the current leader, well, obviously they have more, he or she would have more media presence in order to win the media. So, but if we put the leaders in a perspective under a debate, you can actually see more towards someone you perhaps you had never know of, but his reaction towards the topic and things might actually provide a big effect upon the result of the elections. So who knows? We got 7 days to go. What do you think? Do you think Labour will win? Do you think Labour National will win? We don't know. But looks like at this point in time, look at this one. Lisa Cox, the Green have been at Brona Wildlife Sanctuary outside Hobart today. Party promised 24.4 billion. So obviously all the politicians coming out throwing in numbers to attract voters. Now, second half of this video, obviously we're going to talk about how the policies in maintaining 160,000 annual intake for 2022 and 23 financial year. Well, obviously a lot of skilled migrant will be really disappointed at that point of time. However, Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, says we haven't reached the quota. Why are we haven't reached the goal? Why are we increasing it? The business chamber, a lot of groups coming out saying, look, you're just being too strict. You're not giving out visas. That's why it's not meeting the targets. We don't know if that's correct or not, but I don't want to put too much opinion on that one. But let's have a look of that Financial Review article. So, state of paralysis. I think that's the reporter is very good at using the words in the art form to actually describe how it is. So business despairs over sluggish immigration flow. Well, basically meant the business group are complaining in regards. Scott Morrison, didn't you say you need a visa reform, a overhaul, or Australian visa program or something like that? Do you recall? Probably half a year ago or last year somewhere. And you promised this, you're gonna do this agri visa, you're gonna do this increase of quota and getting more skilled migrants. And what happened? You didn't even increase the annual intake. How do you increase all these things? Obviously, we done a video previously how they explain it. They basically cut off some of the business investment visa, cut off some of the global talent, and cut off some of the family visas with a total of 30,000. And move that into the skill sector, or which I think is the right thing to do. Yeah, you don't want to use too much of the other ones. Why don't we move that to the skill migration? But the business people is still not satisfied. So what? Let's have a read. Australian visa system needs to overhaul, accelerate skilled labor flows in an increasing competitive global war of talents. Now, obviously, I'm not too sure if there's a war on talent this point of time, but it's always talented people always want to go places they want to go. But I still get talents migrate to Australia, but whether or not the ratio or the quality of talents, should I say, I'm not too sure. I don't want to put much of comment on this one, but why don't you put a comment? Do you believe there's a war of talent going on? In the comment right down below, hey? Says immigration business expert as Scott Morrison admitted that the government 160 cap is not even close of being met. So what he's trying to say is it's not even that many people, but the business people are coming back and saying that with the business hospital farmers across the nation screaming out of workers experience a qualification and concern growing over immigration law, says is a slowdown in offshore visa processing. Wow, here we go. I think that's the fact. How many of you watching this video right now, you're offshore and you're still waiting for your visa to be processed? What's happening there? So is it really that the goal, the cap is not being met, or the government is basically looking in a way just to be sluggish slow down on processing. I think this is quite true. So the rule discourage older and more experienced workers and high priority job lists. This is out of the date. So this basically they trying to continue on and saying, I've never seen it's restricted as it is now. I'm not too sure how strict that is, but didn't the government say they're coming out with the overhaul and they want to make it much easier? Don't know, probably just for temporary people. So I think maybe it's time to change the government. Maybe. Okay, what's your thought? So one of the immigration lawyer, and he declined to identify himself because, well, he doesn't want to be targeted by perhaps government. I'm not too sure. Another business group said, I don't think we can say because of the pandemic anymore. There's a clear need of workers to come to Australia as soon as possible. I think the political is linked to election in a state of paralysis. Yes. I think that statement is very, very true. The elections, obviously, what happened there? Now, if you recall one of my videos, I can't remember when, but early this year, perhaps, back in 2018 and 19, the elections, the key winner back then was to decrease the annual intake, because there was so many complaints around the nation saying that there's too many skilled migrants, there's too many migrants, they're taking out jobs, they're making Sydney and making Melbourne congested in traffic and transportations. However, a virus came in 2020 and had actually revealed all of that claim were all not true, perhaps lies even. Look at this during the pandemic. Sydney and Melbourne still get that traffic jam every morning, right? There's much less international students anymore in the Melbourne city. Do you still get less? Do you get no traffic jam? I don't think so. So obviously they utilize that statement, winning the election previously back in 2018-19. Now they are very hard to shake that off. And that's why it's a political reason. They are not increasing the quota just to win their existing supporter. However, I think the existing supporter and the community as a whole in Australia has changed their view. So obviously we're talking about like New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is making and creating a so-called green list, just to get more talent and lead to permanent residency. I know New Zealand is offering for a lot of medical professionals to directly getting permanent residency to actually attract them to New Zealand. Now, our Minister of Immigration acts who announced in March budget the permanent intake ceiling will be still capped at 160,000. Which we just talked about. It's not really satisfactory. We're not even getting close to the cap in short term because we're seeking to rebuild the program. Well, that's probably that's enough time. You're talking about rebuild the program. What about all the delay? What about all the backlog? What's going on there? People waiting for a year. Can you imagine people wanting to invest into Australia? They are required to wait for 3 years processing time. How would the state respond to that? Don't know. Okay. So balancing up, maintaining quality of that's the current government trying to say. They're balancing up maintaining the quality of life, and blah 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 all around the nation. Well, which is true, but it's not. It shouldn't become a reason for you just to be maybe sluggish and delay and backlog and things like that. Why don't you clear those things out? What is the reason that you have such a big huge backlog? International border movement have rebounded. Yes, it's true. Obviously, you don't want it to compare to, but has the government responded? Could the government respond better? In way to attract more talents? I think that will be the better question in regards to how the government of Australia has responded towards a post-pandemic era. So again, we're talking about the visitors and things. Obviously, you can see. Obviously, you can search this media. The business group is not happy. Is not definitely not happy. So the challenge on how would address of the issue, the opposition leader, which is going to be the Labour Party, Anthony Albanese, said that skill migration will continue to play a role, particularly in terms of filling shortages that are there in short term. But he said that he told the business community there is a range of professional where employer have relied on short-term responses to a long-standing problem. Australia has needed engineers, chefs across the sectors in a long period, a long time. He said we should look to attract best and brightest to Australia. Obviously, well, those statement doesn't really mean anything at all, because I have read and listened and watched so many of the similar kind of statement. But anyhow, what is your thought? Would the election of 2022 make a difference to the immigration policy? Well, for my view, as a long-term in the industry of immigration of Australia, I have predicted since the pandemic started that the immigration policy will soon be opened up with a very nice window starting from 2023 onwards for around 3 to 5 years. I still stand with that statement because obviously during the pandemic, there's so much with the public health system required to be adjusted to a century pandemic. So I don't blame the current government on whatever they're trying to do, but could they do better? Maybe, yes. How about the opposition party? Can they actually do better? We don't know. Well, until possibly they win the election, who knows? But I think what's coming up in the next 1, 3, 5 years will be very good if you're interested about migrating to Australia. Anyway, should you have more question and query, more than welcome to leave a comment right down below. I'll see you next video. Goodbye.